Welcome, the Lord's chosen. When divine order steps in, even silence starts speaking fluent justice. Some people think karma takes years. Truth is, sometimes it just takes the right person saying your name in the right room while your enemies are still rehearsing their lies. Funny how that works, right? One moment they're plotting your downfall. The next moment someone with real influence is defending you with the same passion they used to attack you. Here's a strange but documented fact. In psychology, there's a phenomenon called the observer effect. The very act of being watched can change how people behave. Spiritually, it's the same thing. The moment divine eyes turned toward you, the energy shifted. Your ops started tripping over their own setups, exposing themselves faster than you could screenshot. See, chosen ones don't always fight back. Sometimes, life assigns someone who outranks your enemies to do it for you. And that's where the plot thickens. You're not just being protected, you're being publicly positioned. So buckle up, because this isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about reversal, about how the same mouths that mocked you are now being quieted by the same force that once watched in silence. And if you've ever wondered whether someone up there really steps in when it's unfair, this one's your confirmation. Number 1, you were the quiet storm. They laughed at until it started flooding everything. They laughed at you when you moved quietly. They mistook your calm for weakness, your patience for hesitation, your silence for confusion. You were growing in plain sight, and because they couldn't see the thunder yet, they thought there would be no storm. What they didn't realize was that real power never needs permission to rise. You were gathering strength in the shadows, and every moment they mocked you was another moment you became more certain of who you were. You weren't behind, you were becoming. The world only notices results, never the process, and that's why they misread you. You were busy building something that didn't need validation. You didn't argue, you didn't beg to be understood, you just let time speak for you. And when it finally did, it spoke loud enough to drown out every rumor, every insult, every attempt to discredit you. Suddenly, the same people who called you too quiet couldn't stop talking about you. What happened was simple. The storm they laughed at became the flood they couldn't escape. You changed everything without warning. It wasn't luck or magic. It was alignment. You were in sync with something bigger, something that doesn't announce itself until it's ready. That's why your rise felt sudden to them, but natural to you. You had already lived this moment in your spirit, long before it showed up in real life. Now they're standing there, confused, trying to understand how the person they once dismissed became the one everyone is watching. They can't explain it because it breaks their logic. They thought you needed their approval, their platform, their help. But all you needed was time and a little bit of underestimation. Their doubt became your disguise. Their laughter became your motivation. Their disbelief gave you privacy to evolve without interference. You didn't rush it. You waited for the right current to carry your wave. And when it came, you didn't ask for space. You took it. The storm they mocked became your proof that patience isn't passive. It's preparation. You were never the weak one in the room. You were the quiet one with a forecast they couldn't read. And now you're the reason they finally believe in bad weather warnings. Number 2, you didn't need a defender. The universe assigned you one. You didn't have to fight back because something bigger was already fighting for you. The protection over your life has always been too specific to be coincidence. Every time someone tried to pull you down, something invisible pulled you right back up. Every time a door slammed in your face, another one opened before you even had time to knock. You weren't lucky, you were covered. Some call it God, some call it the universe, but whatever name you give it, that force knew exactly when to step in and shut things down on your behalf. Your enemies thought you were alone. They thought no one would stand up for you, no one would see through the lies, no one would defend your name. But they were wrong. What they didn't know was that the battle was never one-sided. The moment they moved against you, something unseen began rearranging events to protect your peace. That's why things kept turning in your favor even when it didn't make sense. That's why what should have destroyed you only redirected you. When you have divine backing, your enemies can't win even when they think they're winning. They can spread rumors, form alliances, and use influence. But when timing itself is on your side, they can't touch you. You were never being ignored. You were being observed. Every unfair thing done to you was being documented for the right moment of reversal. And that moment always arrives, not when you beg for it, but when the lesson is complete. The one defending you doesn't need an audience. They work in silence but strike with precision. That's why people suddenly start apologizing without knowing why. That's why certain opportunities find you right after someone tries to block you. You don't have to fight for every outcome because divine energy knows how to restore balance better than you ever could. So when you wonder why you made it out of situations that should have buried you, that's your answer. You weren't being lucky. You were being protected. Every loss you took was rerouted into protection disguised as rejection. Someone higher saw what was done in secret and decided enough was enough. You didn't need a defender. You already had one, and they never lost a case. Number 3, their hands are now tied by what they tried to touch. They thought they could touch you and walk away untouched. They believed they could plot, lie, manipulate, and still move freely like nothing happened. But that's not how it works when someone is chosen. There's a kind of spiritual law that doesn't need your permission to activate. It simply does. Every word spoken against you, every act meant to harm you, carries weight. And when that energy comes back, it doesn't knock first. It hits exactly where it hurts most. The same hands that tried to push you down are now tangled in the very web they spun. It's not revenge, it's reflection. What they sent out had your name on it, but your protection redirected it. They were too blinded by ego to realize they were building their own downfall. Every move against you was a setup for their exposure. The trap they designed became their own cage. They can't untie what they bound themselves with. That's the quiet brilliance of divine justice. It doesn't always shout, it just balances things perfectly. At first, it looks like they're winning. They smile, thinking you're finished. But slowly, things start crumbling around them. Opportunities fade, relationships sour, peace disappears. They can't trace the cause, but deep down, they know. They touched something sacred. They tried to mess with what was meant to be left alone. The more they resist the truth, the tighter life grips them. That's the unseen consequence of tampering with purpose. You never needed to clap back. You didn't have to wish them harm or demand payback. The universe doesn't need help running its system. It handles disrespect with precision. And now, while you rise in peace, they wrestle with what they created. They have to face the mirror they broke with your name written across it. They wanted control, but control turned into chaos. They wanted to see you struggle, but they became the struggle. That's the irony. Every harmful intention became the evidence of who they truly are. And in the end, they'll understand something you've always known. You can't touch what's protected. You can only expose yourself trying. They thought they tied you up. What they really did was tie their own hands to the consequences they can't escape. Number 4, you were the test. They failed without knowing they were being tested. They thought they were just playing games with your emotions, throwing shade or testing your patience for fun. But they didn't realize that every moment they mishandled you was part of a greater examination, not of your character, but of theirs. Life doesn't hand out written tests. It sends people. It places someone genuine, kind, or patient in front of the proud, the deceitful, and the bitter, not to see if the good one breaks, but to reveal what hides inside the other. And when that test came, they failed it with flying colors. They were too focused on trying to expose you that they didn't notice they were exposing themselves. Every insult they made, every betrayal they planned, every scheme they laughed about became a reflection of their own spirit. You didn't need to defend yourself. They did the work for you. Their actions became their confession. Their choices revealed the truth you were too graceful to speak. The funny thing about divine tests is that they never announce themselves. People always think they're in control until they realize they've been under observation the whole time. They thought they were evaluating you, your worth, your limits, your loyalty, but they were the ones being evaluated. How they handled your kindness, how they spoke about you in your absence, how they reacted when they thought you couldn't do anything for them. Those were their exam questions. They wanted to embarrass you, but they only exposed their own lack of integrity. They wanted to make you doubt yourself, but they only revealed how insecure they truly were. They tried to make you look small, and in doing so showed how shallow they'd become. The lesson wasn't yours to learn, it was theirs to fail. You simply stood still long enough for truth to grade them. Now they're facing the aftermath of their own behavior, wondering why everything feels different. That's what happens when you fail a spiritual test. The energy shifts. Access gets revoked. The same doors that opened easily for them now stay locked. They'll replay every moment, trying to find where things went wrong, but you already know. It was when they mistook your presence for permission and your patience for weakness. That's when they flunked the exam they didn't know they were taking. Number 5, you never needed to expose them. Life did the broadcasting. You never had to lift a finger, make a post, or say a word. Life did all the work. The same people who spent their days trying to discredit you ended up proving every word you never said. Their actions became their own documentary, and the world watched as the truth streamed live. No editing, no filters, no excuses. That's the beauty of divine timing. It waits until people are comfortable in their lies, then presses play for everyone to see. You were never in a competition with them, even when they were secretly racing against you. They were too busy trying to paint you as the problem, not realizing they were handing the brush to karma. Life doesn't need your defense. It has a perfect way of balancing energy. When someone moves with deceit, it eventually circles back, and the exposure happens so naturally it doesn't even look forced. You didn't have to prove you were right. The truth simply became undeniable. Their masks started cracking the moment they thought it was permanent. All those fake smiles, the false humility, the exaggerated stories, they couldn't keep up with the performance. Real character always bleeds through the costume, and when it did, the same audience that once believed them started questioning everything. The same people who laughed at you began seeing through the act. You stayed consistent, they couldn't. That's how exposure works. It's not loud, it's inevitable. You didn't need revenge, because exposure is revenge, just wrapped in silence. Life became your spokesperson. People started connecting the dots without your help. Suddenly, what they accused you of doing started happening to them. What they claimed you were became their own reflection. That's not coincidence. That's justice being poetic. The best part? You didn't gloat. You didn't throw it in their face. You just kept your peace while life did the broadcasting in 4K clarity. That's what true elevation looks like. Not proving, not arguing, just watching as truth airs the highlight reel of their own hypocrisy. And while they scrambled to rewrite their narrative, the world already saw the premiere twice. Because when life broadcasts your vindication, it doesn't need your permission. It just needs your patience. Number 6, your presence started feeling like judgment to them. You never had to call them out, argue, or prove anything. Just being yourself made them uneasy. Your peace became too loud for their chaos. Your authenticity irritated their performance. You didn't change the energy. You simply walked into the room with yours intact, and that alone exposed everything fake around you. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't accuse anyone. It just exists. And in doing so, it reminds people of what they're not. They couldn't figure out why they suddenly felt defensive around you. You didn't confront them, but your presence forced them to confront themselves. It's hard for someone to wear a mask when standing next to someone who doesn't need one. You became a living mirror, not because you tried to reflect them, but because your honesty reflected everything they tried to hide. And deep down, they knew it. That's why their smiles felt strained. That's why their jokes had edge. They weren't comfortable around you because your light made their shadows impossible to ignore. You never intended to make anyone feel small. You just refused to shrink. But people who live off validation see confidence as confrontation. They confuse calm with superiority because they can't stand next to someone who doesn't need external approval. Your quietness wasn't arrogance. It was alignment. You were grounded while they were performing, and that difference was unbearable for them. They started avoiding you, whispering about you, trying to label you, not because you wronged them, but because your presence revealed everything false about theirs. They could fool others, but they couldn't fool themselves around you. That's why it looked like they disliked you for no reason. The reason was simple. You reminded them of every truth they'd buried. When truth walks into a room, lies lose oxygen, and you carried truth like a scent, subtle but undeniable. You didn't have to defend your name, shift your tone, or dim your spirit. Just standing there was enough. That's the silent kind of power most people don't understand. The ability to unsettle deceit without speaking a word. You weren't judging them. Life was. You were just the evidence. Number 7. Someone powerful chose to speak your name in the right room. You didn't even know your name was being spoken, not in the gossip circles that tried to ruin you, but in rooms that could actually change your life. While people were busy trying to bury your reputation, someone powerful was quietly raising your profile. It's one of those divine setups that human effort can't explain. The same season your name was dragged through small conversations, it was also being elevated in conversations that truly mattered. You weren't in the room, but grace was. That's how destiny works. It doesn't need your attendance to advance your story. You could be resting, healing, or doubting yourself. And still, someone with real influence is saying, I think they'd be perfect for this. That's not coincidence. That's orchestration. You did the work. You stayed consistent. You showed up even when no one noticed, and life took note of it. Eventually, that consistency attracted the kind of attention gossip can't destroy. While your enemies were busy feeding lies to anyone who would listen, the truth was walking into higher rooms with your name on it. They whispered in corners. Destiny whispered in boardrooms. They wanted to make you look small, but someone saw the strength behind your struggle and spoke up on your behalf. And when power speaks, rumors lose volume. You didn't need to defend yourself because the voice that defended you had authority their noise could never reach. There's something poetic about that. The people who tried to block your path unknowingly made space for your blessing. Every time they mentioned you negatively, they kept your name in circulation. They made you a topic. They gave you visibility. And life used that same exposure as a vehicle to place you before the right eyes. Now doors are opening without explanation. Opportunities are finding you without effort. You're reaping the benefits of conversations you never even knew happened. That's how divine irony works. Those who spoke against you in private now have to watch as you're celebrated in public. The same lips that cursed you will one day have to mention your success. And when that moment comes, You won't even need to say, "I told you so." Destiny already did. Number 8, you weren't protected because you were perfect. You were protected because you were purposeful. You've made mistakes, some loud, some silent, and yet you're still standing. Not because you've done everything right, but because your journey still carries weight. The protection over your life has never been about perfection. It's been about purpose. The universe, or God, if you will, doesn't guard flawless people. It guards those who are meant to change something, and that's you. Every time you thought it was over, every time you expected the worst but somehow made it through, that wasn't luck. That was preservation. You're still here because your role isn't done. Your flaws don't make you unworthy. They make you real. They make you relatable, grounded and human enough to carry a message that perfection never could. People forget that the most powerful ones are often the most broken ones first. You've been through what others couldn't survive because your story isn't meant to sound polished. It's meant to sound true. You weren't chosen because you shine. You were chosen because you've known the dark and still decided to grow. Sometimes protection doesn't look like blessings. It looks like isolation, delay, or even loss. It's life rerouting you when you're about to settle for less than your assignment. You might have thought things were falling apart, but really they were being rearranged to fit your real path. Every disappointment became divine redirection. Every heartbreak became quiet training. You weren't being punished, you were being positioned. People often assume that being chosen means being flawless, but if that were true, no one would qualify. You were protected not because you had everything together, but because something about your existence impacts others. You've been spared, covered and restored too many times for it to be random. Purpose kept you alive when logic said you shouldn't be. And now, as you grow into who you're meant to be, you'll realize that protection isn't just about safety. It's about timing. You were kept not to stay comfortable, but to fulfill what you were born to do. The flaws that once embarrassed you are now proof that you're real, tested, and ready. You were never saved because you were perfect. You were saved because your purpose was too powerful to be cut short. Number 9, the energy they used against you became the currency of your rise. They thought they were slowing you down, but every ounce of energy they used against you ended up fueling your progress. That's the kind of irony life loves. The things meant to destroy you end up constructing the next version of you. Their hate became your harvest. Every insult, every rumor, every attempt to break your spirit was converted into momentum. They didn't realize they were investing in your success story. You turned their negativity into currency, and now you're spending it on elevation. The truth is, pain is recyclable. So is envy, betrayal, and rejection. You took everything they threw your way and refined it. You learned how to breathe through hurt without losing your grace. You learned how to turn offense into understanding and how to transform bitterness into wisdom. Every time they tried to drain you, you found a new level of strength. They were feeding your resilience without knowing it. The harder they pushed, the higher you climbed. What they didn't understand is that chosen ones have a unique kind of alchemy. They can't be poisoned because their spirit turns toxins into transformation. You were never destroyed by what they did. You were developed by it. Their words gave you focus. Their doubts gave you fire. Their rejection gave you room to grow. They were unknowingly sponsoring your glow-up while thinking they were blocking it. You became unshakable because they tried to shake you. You became clear because they tried to confuse you. Everything they did in malice ended up refining your mission. That's what happens when you're aligned. Energy doesn't die, it just switches sides. Every curse they sent had to pass through your purpose first, and purpose doesn't absorb poison, it repurposes it. Now, the same people who tried to dim your light can't explain why it shines brighter. Their gossip gave you exposure. Their mockery gave you motivation. You didn't need revenge. You just needed to keep walking. The universe handled the rest. You mastered the art of spiritual recycling, turning hate into history, pain into power, and opposition into opportunity. They thought they were breaking you, but really, they were making deposits into your destiny. And now, you're cashing out. Number 10, the one defending. You isn't defending your ego. They're defending divine order. What's happening in your life isn't just about you being right or them being wrong. It's much bigger than that. When you're chosen, your story becomes part of a larger equation that life uses to correct imbalance. That's why you've been defended in ways you can't explain. It's not because the universe wants to protect your pride. It's because there are rules in the unseen world that don't allow certain injustices to stand for too long. Your vindication isn't personal. It's principle. When they came against you, they didn't just challenge a person. They disrupted divine alignment. You were placed where you are for a reason, and when someone tries to interfere with that, it sets off a chain reaction. That's when divine order steps in, not to make you look powerful, but to remind everyone that certain boundaries can't be crossed without consequence. It's not revenge, it's restoration. Life isn't taking sides, it's restoring equilibrium. You were never fighting for validation. You were standing for truth, and truth always defends itself. That's why some of your battles ended suddenly, without warning or closure. The universe had seen enough. The situation wasn't about ego, it was about energy. The scale had tilted too far, and balance had to be restored. When divine forces defend you, it's not about protecting your name. It's about preserving order in the fabric of purpose itself. That's why things started turning in your favor, even when you were exhausted. That's why certain people got exposed without you lifting a finger. That's why doors opened after long seasons of silence. It wasn't luck, it was correction. You're not just a person being vindicated. You're a part of justice being served through you. You've probably noticed that your blessings don't come with loud announcements. They arrive quietly but perfectly timed, because divine order doesn't perform for attention. It performs for alignment. The goal was never for you to boast. It was for truth to breathe again. You didn't win because you fought harder. You won because what they did violated something sacred. And when divine order steps in, no lie, no manipulation, no scheme can stand. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just restores balance and walks away. Number 11. They're finally realizing you weren't the villain. You were the mirror. They painted you as the villain because it was easier than facing the truth you made them feel. You didn't hurt them. You held up a mirror they weren't ready to look into. Every time you spoke honestly, set a boundary, or refused to shrink, it exposed something uncomfortable inside them. They saw in you what they'd been avoiding in themselves, their jealousy, their insecurity, their dishonesty. You became a living reflection of the parts of them they tried to bury, and instead of healing, they chose to project. That's the strange thing about mirrors. They don't create the image, they just show it. You never tried to compete or confront. You were just being yourself. But your authenticity highlighted their pretense. Your growth reminded them of their stagnation. Your peace irritated their chaos. They called you arrogant when you started valuing yourself. They called you fake when you stopped tolerating disrespect. In reality, they weren't reacting to you. They were reacting to their own reflection. The hate you received was never really about you. It was about the emotional discomfort you triggered by existing as proof of what they could be if they were honest with themselves. People who haven't faced their own truth can't stand being around someone who has. You didn't expose them publicly. Your presence did it spiritually. That's why the tension was always there even when you were kind. You didn't need to speak a word. Your growth said everything. Now the truth is catching up with them. The narratives they built about you are collapsing under their own weight. People are starting to see through the lies because light always finds its way through cracks. They're realizing you weren't attacking them. You were teaching them, not through words but through example. The same traits they despised in you are the ones they secretly wish they had. Courage, self-respect, clarity. They're finally seeing it now. You weren't the problem. You were the reflection. You weren't sent to destroy them, but to reveal them. And that's what made you so dangerous to their comfort. It's easier to label someone a villain than to admit they showed you the truth. But the mirror doesn't apologize for what it reveals. It just keeps reflecting until you're ready to change. Number 12. Their connections couldn't compete with your calling. They thought their connections made them untouchable. They believed that who they knew, what they owned, or where they sat gave them power over you. They pulled strings, called in favors, and whispered in ears, trying to block you from what was already written with your name on it. But the truth is, connections can only open doors made by man. Your calling opens doors built by destiny. And when it's your season, even the rooms they tried to lock will open automatically. They underestimated what divine favor really means. It's not about being popular, it's about being positioned. People can network their way into opportunity, but they can't network their way into purpose. When life decides it's your time, no alliance can delay it. Your calling doesn't need a vote, a title, or a signature. It carries its own clearance. You were chosen before they started scheming, and no amount of influence can rewrite what's already been authorized in the spiritual realm. They tried to build systems against you, group chats, fake alliances, manipulative narratives. They thought their numbers gave them strength, but divine order doesn't measure by majority. It measures by assignment. And because your assignment is higher, their connections became irrelevant. Their plans got tangled in their own politics, while your path stayed clear and quiet. You didn't have to push doors open. Life rearranged the whole structure just to make space for you. When you walk in favor, the hierarchy flips. The same people who once ignored your presence will have to acknowledge your position. The same tables where they excluded you are now being adjusted to seat you at the head. That's what divine reversal looks like. Not just tables turning, but the entire room being redesigned to highlight your role. You didn't climb by flattery or by playing their games. You rose by alignment. That's why you're untouchable in ways they can't understand. Their connections were temporary. Your calling is eternal. They hustled for visibility while grace gave you legacy. And now no rumor can erase what's been divinely established. They're learning, painfully and publicly, that power borrowed from people will always collapse. But power given by purpose never expires. Number 13. You became untouchable. The moment you stopped explaining yourself. The moment you stopped explaining yourself was the moment everything shifted. You finally realized that no amount of truth will ever convince someone committed to misunderstanding you. So you let go, not out of weakness, but wisdom. You stopped defending what was already pure. You stopped breaking your peace to fix their perception. That's when your energy transformed. You stopped chasing clarity from people who benefit from your confusion, and that silence became your shield. There's a quiet kind of power that comes when you no longer feel the need to be understood. It's the kind that unnerves people who thrived on your reactions. They used to feed off your explanations, your justifications, your attempts to make peace. Once you went silent, they lost control. You didn't withdraw, you ascended. You moved from being available for debate to being protected by discernment. When you stopped defending yourself, Life started doing it for you. You learned that truth doesn't need a microphone, it just needs time. And time has a perfect way of revealing what's real. So instead of trying to clear your name in every conversation, you let your growth do the talking. You let your peace tell the story. You understood that silence isn't emptiness, it's evidence. It's what happens when you outgrow the need to prove your worth to people who only listen to lies. The universe guards what is still. The more you pulled back, the more life started protecting you. Doors began opening quietly. People who once gossiped about you started facing their own exposure. Without you saying a word, the truth began to echo louder than any defense you could have given. That's what divine vindication looks like, unbothered grace. You became untouchable not because you hid, but because you healed. You no longer operate from wounded energy that needs validation. You've reached the level where peace is louder than explanation, and boundaries speak for you. That's why your silence now feels intimidating to them. It's no longer submission, it's sovereignty. You stopped trying to prove your purity, and the universe took that as a cue to step in. Because what no longer defends itself becomes protected by something greater, and that's why they can't touch you anymore. Number 14. The one sticking up for you isn't human. It's destiny with a vengeance. You're not being defended by a person. You're being defended by destiny itself. The same force that shaped your path refuses to let falsehoods rewrite it. Every time someone lied on you, tried to block you, or laughed behind your back, that energy was quietly recorded in the blueprint of your purpose. Now the balance is being restored. The universe doesn't forget what was done in the dark. It simply waits for the right moment to respond in daylight. And that moment has arrived. You didn't have to clap back because destiny doesn't argue. It proves. The same energy that built you from rock bottom is now rising with a kind of vengeance that's not violent, but righteous. It's not about revenge, it's about revelation. The lies are crumbling under their own weight, and the truth is, walking in without needing an introduction. Those who mocked you are now being forced to watch the very thing they said you'd never become. That's not coincidence, that's cosmic justice unfolding. Destiny doesn't defend your ego, it defends your authenticity. You were shaped through trials, through humiliation, through moments when no one believed in you. Every heartbreak became construction material for your rise. That's why this moment feels so poetic, because it's not sudden. It's the quiet payoff of everything you endured while people underestimated you. The energy that built you is now demanding recognition, and no rumor, no enemy, no sabotage can compete with that. Those who tried to play with your name are learning that destiny has a long memory. The same way you were embarrassed in private, they're now being humbled in public. Not because you wished it, but because balance must be restored. You were never meant to stay hidden. You were meant to rise, and destiny is ensuring that nothing can block the view this time. The tables didn't just turn, the whole stage rotated in your favor. The people who once laughed are now clapping, not because they've changed, but because they have no choice. That's how divine reversal works. The same energy that once carried your pain is now carrying your power. Destiny is not just sticking up for you, it's rewriting the narrative. And this time, it's doing it in front of everyone. Everything that's happening right now, the exposure, the reversal, the rise, it's not random, it's divine choreography. The same hands that once allowed you to be misunderstood are now making sure your truth is heard in surround sound. Every silence, every delay, every betrayal had a purpose, to build the kind of strength that can't be faked, and the kind of grace that can't be shaken. You were never losing, you were being positioned. And now, what was meant to humiliate you is turning into your highlight reel. Your enemies thought they buried you, but destiny was planting you. They thought they were closing doors, not realizing you were being redirected to the ones only purpose could open. And when those doors finally swung wide, they didn't just open, they announced you. That's why you don't have to lift a finger. Life itself is speaking on your behalf. The one defending you isn't operating from ego or emotion. It's destiny with an ancient agenda, ensuring that balance returns to where it was stolen. Now the same people who misjudged you are being forced to witness the truth they tried to bury. The ones who mocked are now spectators. The ones who plotted are now props in your comeback story. Everything they used against you became raw material for your rise. You didn't just survive, you transcended. You became the proof that when you're chosen, even chaos becomes part of the choreography. Every storm you endured was building an atmosphere for your unveiling. Every delay was preparing your timing. And now that the curtains are lifting, the universe is making sure every eye that saw your fall will witness your rise. You don't have to explain, chase, or defend anymore. You've entered the season where silence speaks, where purpose performs, and where destiny delivers on everything it ever promised. You are being backed by something no man can manipulate, divine order itself. So stand tall, stay humble, and keep moving. The same universe that once tested you is now testifying for you. If this message spoke to your spirit, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that destiny always defends its own. Your rise isn't coming. It's already in motion. Stay blessed always.